Yeah, welcome to You Can Learn Guitar. We're going to do major and minor pentatonic part 4. Woo! Out of maybe, 5 or 6 or 7 or 10, whatever it takes to get us all so we have a nice foundation and kind of the fundamentals of mixing the two, because that's, where the rubber meets the road, baby. So, link down below. Like the great movie adage says, it's like a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get. So I would suggest at least checking it out. Maybe there'll be something that you'll be totally stoked on, and maybe there'll be something you'll be totally stoked on. But you'll never know unless you click the link below. All right, so I've had way too much tea. So let's zoom in for a closer look. All right, so right off the bat, what we're going to do is remember that we're in C-sharp minor pentatonic. And we're going to be also in C-sharp major pentatonic. All right, so we're going to mix the two together today. Now, right off the bat, I'm just going to be upfront and say that I'm not a super huge fan of playing, not of the sound, but of playing that kind of happy major-y blues. I'm more of like an aggressive, like, yeah, kind of blues guy, but this is good for me too, because it really forces me to get that major sound and creatively mix it. So it's a great backing track. It's Born Under a Bad Sign, Albert King, I believe, and it just, something one of my Skype students sent to me as like, hey, what do I do to this? So what I was going to do is start off by showing what can we do out of the minor, since a lot of players are more familiar with the minor box. How can we start out riffs in the minor box and then maybe move it to the major pentatonic first position? So first position C-sharp minor contains the major C-sharp chord in it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight some of those major pentatonic, or major chord rather, chord tones, like the third, right? So right in the beginning, that's not in the key. All right, so here we go. Now right there, that was the first lick I started off with, and I immediately went, since it's kind of already in a major sound, that chord progression, I decided to highlight that, right? So I hit the major third, another chord tone right here. And then what I did was I bent that second position. So right now this is all second position major pentatonic, right? So I bent this guy, which is the 11th fret, kind of into that minor sound of the minor pentatonic. So you get both. You get the sound of major right there, even right here, and then I bent it up just a little bit to get that minor flavor. So then I went and I bent up that 11th fret, went back to the 9th fret on the B, did the stacking, so 11, 11, G and B, back to G. And then I went back and I hammered into the major third, right? We're still out of that minor pentatonic box. Went back into minor right there. Now I'm in 5th position, minor pentatonic. Right there, okay? So how am I going to make that into a major sound and get that one last little, snidbit of major tone in there? Well, my major third, if I think octave-wise, is right here too. Okay, so what I did was I added a passing tone, right, which is the 10th fret. Then I went right back into minor pentatonic, 5th position. So I went 9, 9 on the E and the A, back to E. And then I hammered back into that third. Right? So I went. And now what I want to do, since this song is still in that major sound, right? It's really in a predominantly major sounding part of the progression. I went back and I got the C sharp note, right? Because here's my C sharp chord. So I went back and I just outlined and got back to home base. So I went again. Now from there, it's a real major part of the song, a real majory sounding. So I just stuck in. Now I'm down and I got myself into that first position major pentatonic. Now one little trick is if you find the major pentatonic chord on the A string. So right now I'm in C sharp major. If I just take this shape and move it up a whole step, now I'm in that major pentatonic shape, right? The first position shape is right behind that chord. So if you're on C sharp major on the A string, if you move up a whole step, you've now just put your fingers right where they need to be. Right? So say we were in B, what I'd want to do is go up a whole step, and now the first position major pentatonic is just up a whole step from there. Right? So that's a little trick. Now, what we're going to do from there is I'm just really outlining those chord tones of that C sharp major. Now what I did there is I took the root in the fifth, hammered on a little Hendrix style, up a whole step. I'm on the D string, but I'm letting that G string 6th fret ring. So I'm hammering on the 8th of the D, letting the 6th fret of the G ring. And now I'm going to take the 8th fret, slide down, and then I'm going to go back to the root of C sharp, right? And I'm going to highlight it again right there. With the 5th position of major pentatonic. So we got whatever I did. Right? Now one of my favorite riffs, and I think I showed it already, was bending up. If you're in first position, bend up what would be the 9th fret. And then I just walk back down and outline that shape. So what I did was I just went right down in a row chromatically. Now, if you want to know what that is, right? We're taking notes of the scales and we're just combining them together. So right now, this is first position. Right? And I get down to here, but I can go one more fret down. And now I'm right back in 4th position minor. Now what I can do to make that sound major, right? It's just a little passing, like I want a little pizzazz of minor in there. That would be all minor. Now if I just do something as simple as hammer on right there into the major pentatonic scale, and then go right back to my root. Now all of a sudden we've taken a minor riff and gone back to major. So let's see where we are in our jam track here. Right? So that's how you would apply those kind of licks, right? That's all just out of what I just showed you. And that's how you kind of got that when it goes up to that kind of, that shift in the progression. Dun, 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 you know, and the horns come in and everything. you want to kind of emphasize the minor pentatonic right there. Now, oftentimes when you're in a 1-4-5, you know, blues progression, the 1 and the 5 sound really good with the major. Now, when the 4 comes around, the 4 chord, that's a really good time to hit those minor notes. And then I like to take the 5 chord, and that's when I hit both of those things together a lot. So let's go over some other of the little things that we did. Okay, so another thing we can do is slide up from major pentatonic into minor. So I'm just outlining position 5. So I slid from 4 to 6 on the E, catch the 4 of the A, and then I went to 6 and slid up into first position. 6 of D, went right back to the root. I slid up on D to 8, and then went back to 6. And then from there, I'm going to slide into my minor pentatonic box, but I'm still going to do a major riff. So I established that I'm in minor pentatonic, hit that little flat 5 or whatever the heck that note's called that everybody loves in blues, right? Then I went back and outlined that chord again, hammering on into the major 3rd of C sharp, and then I went 2 more chord tones, right? There's that C sharp major triad. And then I went back into the minor pentatonic sound and bent up that B, right? A whole step, which gets us to the root again. But since you're starting from that more minor-y sounding spot, you're bending up from like a minor note into the major sound. So another thing I like to do is, like I said in the beginning, if you see position 2, right? This is minor pentatonic. Position 2 of major pentatonic directly overlays that. Right? Keep in mind, here's our box. So what we've got is 9 and 11, 9 and 11, and then we got 10 right inside that. So we got... Now, a cool thing to do as well is mess around. We can add the blues note, go back into that minor pentatonic. So you got 4 notes in a row. So that's one of the things I like to do is I hammer on 3rd finger, and then I hammer on 12, pull off. Right? So I more of a minor sounding run, and then I make it major by going major 3rd, and then back to the root, which is neither major or minor. So let's look at some other riffs we can do. Okay, so what I did right there in some of those riffs was I go outside of the minor pentatonic. It's one of my favorite little runs there. So I'm in minor pentatonic, bottom string, the E string, and I go 1 fret up. Real George Lynch, Warren DeMartini. One thing I want to stress for a lot of the blues players out there, the old 80s metal guitar players are so good at this kind of thing. Now, it's a rock context, so it's not like you can go to like blues jam night and directly rip off their licks, and people are going to be like, oh, dude, that's blasphemy, right? So, but it's a very cool, influential sound to be able to kind of sneak into your blues repertoire, right? So what we're going to do, again, that's Rat and Dawkin. Those two guys are amazing at mixing that kind of hybrid blues sound. Okay, so right, and then I go back into minor, or you can go. So I pulled off. Now that's more of a Mixolydian sounding lick, right? So this will be more of a major sounding lick, and then that's more of a minor. Or you can just pull off. So I'm just pulling off from 13 to 9. Now what I also did was kind of that funk thing where I'm just outlining. I'm just taking 2 strings at a time, right out of that minor pentatonic. So I went 12 and 12, 9 and 9. Then I went 11, 11 on the G and B. And then I went back into the major sound by going into that third. You can also go where you're taking a minor pentatonic note and a major pentatonic note. Sounds cool if you just kind of barely bend up that B string, 11th fret, while you're on the 12th fret of the B. Right, so let's see if we got it. Now, one of the most common minor licks you'll ever hear in blues. Right, we're in second position. Let me go to the root note, right? So I'm bending up on the E, 14, going down to 12, back to the root on 14B. Now what you can do to get a major flavor is bend into that, right? That third is here as well, right? So get the octaves down where you know where the octaves of all the degrees of the chord are. So you can go, just bend into that. So it sounds like you're like, oh baby, oh you almost, yeah, you're right there. It's awesome. That's when the people in the crowd are like, yeah, and they throw it out and they're just really feeling it. You make one of those faces like you just sucked on a bunch of lemon juice to really add extra pizzazz, right? Right, so we've been doing this riff. We can do it down here too. That's another cool way to do it. So you can go 11 to 12, or 12 to 13 rather. And then bend up that 14 a step and a half. And then go back to that root. I did that kind of Stevie Ray Vaughan-esque lick where I went 12 on the E, pull off, and you slide down. We're on the B now. 14, 12, slide down to 9. right? So you got that. Also, there's this cool little run, which I showed you earlier. That would be in the fourth position of minor pentatonic. Now I'm just going down in that position. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to hammer on and come back into that major sound. So we got... Right, so if we took that down to the third position, minor pentatonic, right, on the D string, I'm going to hammer into the third fret, and then I'm going to grab the second fret of the B. That kind of sound. You know? That sort of thing there. Right, so it's just finding ways to creatively flow, you know, and try to do it like, you know, I was filming myself and it's like trying to make everything flow with these riffs, right? The key is not just to be able to play the riff. It's to be able to do it with a track. So I would practice all these licks to some sort of a track or a beat, or it doesn't have to be this particular, you know, track or backing track or whatever. Find something where you can do this and emulate this sort of thing, major and minor pentatonic together, but to a beat. So not only are you practicing your riffs, but you're practicing playing in the pocket. Really pay attention to when those drums are hitting and all that stuff. You know, it's something I work on all the time, you know, making stuff sound fluid and smooth. So part 4, there you have it. Next part, I'm going to do more of a minor sounding track, but how to kind of make a little bit of major in there without, you know, kind of spoiling it. So stay tuned for part 5.